There is a sound a house makes when it knows something is wrong. It is not a creak or a draft. It is more like a howled breath, a heavy, suffocating stillness that sits in the corners of the rooms. I noticed it the night my husband, Walter, came home from his doctor's appointment and didn't say a single word. He just set his keys on the counter, the way he always did, poured a glass of water, and stood at the kitchen window looking out at the yard. We had tended together for 31 beautiful years. I asked him how it went. He simply said, fine. But after 3 decades together, I knew his silence. Somewhere deep in my chest, a cold weight settled. My world was already beginning to fracture. We built everything ourselves. Walter had started his trucking company out of a one-car garage back in 1987 with nothing but a second-hand flatbed and a handshake agreement. I kept the books on a yellow legal pad for the first 3 years. We weren't flashy people. We lived in the same modest house, drove sensible cars, and poured our hearts into raising our son, Denton. What we had, we earned. But 3 weeks after that quiet night, Walter sat me down at the dining room table, the same table where we had celebrated every birthday, and shattered my heart completely. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor had given him a timeline. As I held his trembling hand, trying to stay strong, he whispered something that completely blindsided me. I need you to take your name off our joint accounts immediately. Open new ones, just yours, and transfer everything. I didn't understand. I looked at him, my vision blurred with tears, asking why. He sighed, looking completely exhausted, and revealed a chilling truth. Denton's wife, Suki, had secretly been calling our company's attorney, asking predatory questions about what would happen to the business when Walter passed. She somehow already knew he was sick. It was a cold realization. Suki had always been manipulative, but knowing my own son was letting her circle like a vulture before his father was even gone was a different kind of heartbreak. She tried to take everything, Walter whispered, and Denton will let her. I opened the accounts the following Tuesday, when everything was transferred. Walter folded a paper with the confirmation numbers, sealed it in an envelope, and handed it to me. Don't open it until you need to, he said. I hid it deep in the back pocket of my winter coat, place for things I needed to remember, but didn't want to look at. Walter died on a quiet Sunday morning in March, just 59 days after telling me the truth. I was holding his hand when his breathing finally stopped. The house became utterly silent, a gaping void where my life used to be. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in his chair, feeling entirely broken and exposed to the raw element of grief, until everything changed on Wednesday. Denton arrived at the house. I expected him to come comfort his grieving mother, but he didn't come alone. Suki was right beside him, along with a stranger, a man carrying a sleek leather folio and wearing a suit that was far too expensive for a house call. Mom, Denton said, refusing to meet my eyes. This is Mr. Ferris. He's an attorney. My husband had been gone for barely 48 hours. I hadn't even picked out the flowers for his funeral, and my own flesh and blood had brought a lawyer to my dining room table. Suki reached over, touching Denton's arm with a subtle, commanding grip. Mom, we just need to understand the transition plan for the company, Denton said, his voice rehearsed. Dad would want things to be clear. I looked at my son, searching for the little boy I had raised, but he was completely gone, replaced by a shadow controlled by greed. The pain inside me suddenly shifted. It morphed from a paralyzing sorrow into a burning, quiet strength. Get out of my house, I said, my voice terrifyingly steady. All 3 of you. Once the driveway was empty, I went straight to the closet and pulled the envelope from my winter coat. Opening it, I found Walter's neat, small handwriting. He hadn't just protected the cash. He had quietly restructured the entire company 18 months prior. The majority ownership was solely in my name, signed and finalized before his passing. Denton was left a minor share in a blind trust, completely untouchable by Suki. accessible only when he turned 55. I immediately called our real family attorney, Elaine. As we began digging into the legalities to secure the defense, a sickening betrayal was exposed. Suki hadn't just hired that lawyer after Walter died. She had retained him 6 weeks before his death. Even worse, Elaine discovered how Suki had found out about the terminal diagnosis so early. Suki had maintained a secret, manipulative friendship with a medical assistant at Walter's clinic. That woman had illegally leaked my husband's private medical files to Suki. The moment the lab results came in, I felt utterly destroyed by the lengths they had gone to plot against us while Walter was actively fading away. But I refused to break. With Elaine's help, we handed everything over to the medical licensing board and prepared our legal counter-strike. Suki had thought she was playing a game of chess against a weak, grieving widow, but she didn't know Walter had already built a fortress around me. The consequences were swift and unyielding. The medical assistant who violated the law was immediately terminated and stripped of her license, her career permanently ruined, armed with undeniable proof of the unauthorized disclosure of protected health information. We served Suki with a massive civil lawsuit. The legal pressure was immense, resulting in a severe financial settlement that completely drained Suki's personal assets. She was utterly exposed and financially broken. 7 weeks after the funeral, Denton sat across from me in Elaine's office. Suki wasn't there. The greed that had bound them together had fractured under the weight of the lawsuits, and they were already filing for divorce. Denton looked exactly like his father did when a heavy burden weighed on him. I didn't know about the medical records. "Mom," he choked out, his face collapsing into his hands. I believed him, but the betrayal was still absolute. "But you knew she hired a lawyer," I replied softly. "You knew what she was doing, and you let her walk into my home 2 days after your father died." He had no answer. I had rehearsed a venomous speech for weeks, but looking at his defeated posture, the anger washed away, leaving only a profound, heavy grief. The grief of watching someone you poured your soul into raising become entirely ruined by their own weak choices. Today, the trucking company is thriving. We have 63 trucks on the road now, and I run it alongside a dedicated management team that Walter helped me choose before he passed. Denton and Suki's divorce was finalized months ago. He calls me now. We talk about the weather or a fond memory of his father. We aren't fully healed, and perhaps we never will be. But the honesty in his voice is a start. I still wear that old winter coat. The pocket is empty now, but it serves as a daily reminder of a vital truth. True love is not just a feeling. It is protective, clear-eyed, and wise. The people who genuinely love you will build a foundation beneath your feet, ensuring that even when the worst storms hit, you will land somewhere safe. Walter couldn't stop the cancer, and he couldn't stop the greed of the world, but through his love, he made sure I was left standing on solid ground, and I intend to hold that ground for the rest of my days.